Civil War is often referred to as a pseudo-Avengers film because of the ensemble cast and the inverted arcs of Tony and Cap, but it is firmly, at its core, a Captain America movie, fully committed to expanding Steve's arc that's been established throughout the entire Captain America trilogy up to this point. Captain America's arc throughout this trilogy is a flat arc, in which Cap remains steadfast in his own personal convictions that are intricately tied to his ideals of justice and morality. Cap doesn't really change. Instead, the world around him changes, confronting him with increasingly complex conflicts as the trilogy evolves. This is only briefly touched on in the First Avenger because his ideals are more or less fully aligned with the organization, namely the US Army, that he's representing. Still, Steve Rogers is independent and steadfast in his own singular beliefs, even if they happen to align with half of the world at this point.
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies.
The Winter Soldier expands on this by confronting Cap with a difficult choice. Does he continue to represent the organization he thought was good, but is actually infiltrated by evil? In this case, S.H.I.E.L.D. actually being Hydra, or does he challenge the institution, instead following his own steadfast moral code, even if it makes him an outsider? The answer is obvious in hindsight, but at the time, this simple narrative question revitalized Cap's character, turning him from someone that people thought was classic, if not a bit boring, into a household name. While Captain America Civil War features an ensemble cast of Avengers, including exciting newcomers like Spider-Man and Ant-Man, it is ultimately a movie that's wholly committed to furthering the groundwork that the First Avenger and the Winter Soldier laid out for Cap. Instead of a government institution, whether that be the US Army, S.H.I.E.L.D., or Hydra, it's now Cap's friends, namely Tony Stark and his roster of heroes championing the Skovia Accords that Cap must now stand strong in his beliefs against. Not to say that the Skovia Accords aren't an institution in of themselves, because they definitely are, which also tracks directly onto the lessons Cap learned in the Winter Soldier. He, and we as the audience, already witnessed how a government institution controlling mass amounts of power could be corrupted and abused in the Winter Soldier. To Steve, the Skovia Accords would rob the heroes of their autonomy, essentially converting them into weapons to be utilized and almost certainly abused, just as Hydra-infested S.H.I.E.L.D. had planned to abuse their authoritarian military and surveillance technology in the Winter Soldier. Similarly, one of the major ideological antagonists of this film, Tony Stark, had an inverse arc from Cap that informed his decision-making in this movie, as misguided as it was. Civil War comes off the heels of Avengers Age of Ultron, in which Tony accidentally created Ultron, who went on to level a city.
Oof.
This obviously haunts Tony and motivates him to pull for the Skovia Accords, which places superheroes like Captain America and Iron Man firmly under government jurisdiction and oversight. While earlier appearances of Tony would never have supported something like this now makes sense for the character in the moment, considering Tony's guilt. Now, add the shocking revelation that Bucky, Cap's best friend, murdered Tony's parents while under Soviet mind control, and Tony, understandably, crashes out a little bit, making him a more than suitable antagonist for Cap in this movie. Tony, naturally, only feels even more betrayed when he learns that Cap already knew what Bucky had done and had neglected to tell Tony. Of course, the film uses this as an opportunity to refocus on Cap's arc. We've seen that Cap chooses people over institutions almost every time, so he attributes Howard and Martha Stark's deaths to the institution that was mind-controlling Bucky, not Bucky himself.
Who the hell is Bucky?
Cap also believes in second chances when they're earned, which he's also applied to Natasha and Wanda at this point. Of course, Steve might be extra incentivized to offer his childhood best friend a second chance, but it's not at all inconsistent with the steadfast beliefs that we've seen him staunchly defend for the entire Captain America trilogy. So, no, Captain America Civil War isn't a pseudo-Avengers movie. It's a film that capstones See what I did there? Steve's arc by pitting his moral convictions not just against institutions, but also against his friends and their adversarial outlooks. Just like the Winter Soldier, Civil War proves that Captain America will stand for what he believes is right, regardless of who he needs to stand against. Anyway, I'm a YouTuber, so you probably know what I want. Do the like, comment, subscribe things if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!